So I'm Andy. This is Nleak. We are interviewing threat hunters, so we can learn threat hunting ourselves.
Yep.
We are here with Harshil. Can you give us an
Yep.
introduction about yourself?
Yeah. My name's Harshal. I'm actually not a threat hunter, believe it or not, but I've been in the security operations space primarily for since like 2019, so quite a bit of time actually.
Okay.
So, I've done pretty much mainly incident response and detection engineering, but I've definitely worked on teams where I had to contribute to like the threat hunting process here and there, although it was never like my primary job.
Interesting. Okay, since 2019. Okay, so you have some background in incident response, exactly what we're doing right now. So yeah, we just had some questions for you because I think that we see that there is a gap. Everyone wants to become detection engineers, we noticed, and not everyone is really talking about becoming threat hunters. So hence why we want to start conversations around this and gain some insight. So let us know if you're ready for some questions that we can ask.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So how did you find yourself getting into cyber in the first place?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I went to school for accounting originally, but basically I've always been like on the computer from like gaming, right? That's when like I kind of got exposed. Actually, Minecraft, believe it or not, was like the
Of
first
course.
ever game where like you had to like spin up your own servers. You wanted to play with your friends. Like back then, there weren't like that many servers, and if there were, you had to pay for them. And growing up, I didn't have the money for that, so I just like created my own server, right? Which just like let like maybe a few of my friends join up, and we'd be able to play for basically free, right?
Yeah.
Just running on like old hardware. Which that was my kind of introduction into like computers and then just gaming as a whole, making my own computer because building it from scratch. And then within school, even though I was doing an accounting major initially for a year, you have to take like what do they call like electives, I believe, where
Yeah.
you can just like pick a class where it's just interesting and you kind of just need the credit for it, right? So one of the classes, I don't even know how I got myself into this class. I kind of just signed up for it. Was a coding class originally like around like Python, right? Like automating stuff and yeah, I really liked that class. And basically a lot of the like classes that had computers involved, I just enjoyed them more, and the accounting stuff just got like really boring. So I honestly didn't even know too much about like cybersecurity or even like what it was, but I just switched to that major essentially in college, and panned out pretty well for me if I do say so myself. Because right out of college, I managed to work at an MSP as a security analyst essentially,
Cool.
and yeah, that's kind of how I got my start, I guess.
Cool.
Awesome. So how did you get from getting into cyber to first coming across threat hunting?
Yeah, getting involved with that portion.
Yeah, I mean, whether I knew it or not, right? Like, working in a SOC, you're on like a rotating schedule, right? So oftentimes, if you're working like not the night shift, but the afternoon, like from like maybe 4 p.m. to like 12 a.m., there's not that many alerts, right? So it's like you can't just sit there and do nothing all day, right? So
Yeah.
I think that'd be the first ever time I got exposed to threat hunting, where I didn't know as much, obviously, that I do now, but I would like try to like look for like activity that deviates from the norm, right? That's definitely how I got my start, and I don't think I had like anyone really guiding me or anything for that. It's just you have access to a SIM, you have access to like you know, gigabytes or petabytes of data, right? So I guess like that was just like my start in that, I'd say.
Okay, cool. I appreciate when MSPs give you some autonomy and they tell you, hey, go learn, go do some projects. I think that's a really big plus when I look into it.
Honestly, the reason I'm getting into threat hunting right now is I am moving to that evening shift, and I am going to have a lot more time. So I really appreciate that you relate to that. When was like the first time your boss came up to you, or there was a situation at work where you were like, I need a threat hunt, or you got directly assigned some of that work?
Um, I wouldn't say that really occurred to me when I was working my initial like job, but when I was a detection engineer, my last role essentially, I'd say that was kind of the time where like Scatter Spider was like kind of everywhere on Twitter, right? And they were targeting the exact sector that I worked in.
Wait, can you
So
remind people
that was
who Scattered Spider was?
yeah, Scatter Spider is a APT essentially that performs like a lot of like social engineering and whatnot, and they target like a lot of different sectors, but the sector that I was in when they targeted was like retail. Yeah, they use social engineering. They use a lot of typo squatting,
Yeah.
and then use like RMM tools and so on and so forth. So yeah, they were definitely like targeting other retail companies, and I believe it's called RH ISAC or something like along the lines of that. It was just like a group where just imagine all the top like retailers, like Target, Walmart, even like Amazon, right? Just like a group where they share information like, oh yeah, we see like this type of activity in the environment based on investigation, right? And then you can just kind of like use that as like a lead, right? Like, okay, I mean, if this group got or this organization got targeted, we are, tangentially in like the same sector. So that was definitely a time where, we saw like other retailers get hit by this group. So we were interested in seeing if there's anything in the environment that obviously the standard detections that we have put in place missed. And that was like probably one of the more recent times that I performed threat hunting. And yeah, it was really driven by threat intel, I guess, and just kind of like almost like spur of the moment where it is just something that's so hot in the news that we can't really ignore this. And part of being like a detection engineer is like writing detections based on the TTPs observed by a certain like adversary, right? So I'd say it does evolve. Like it's kind of like related to the detection engineering process, right? Like I mean, you kind of have to perform some sort of baselining and like normalization prior to coming up with your rules. So yeah, I'd say that would kind of answer your question there.
Cool. So funny. Now that you mentioned normalization, I think a big question we have is, okay, you're dropped into an environment. How do you get familiarized with the infrastructure, right? You're set out to do threat hunting. Now, how do you get familiar with the log sources, with the infrastructure, in order to allow yourself to be proactive?
Great question. Now it's a clarifying question. So is this like, am I at an MSP where I have like a few hundred clients, or is this just like internally at like one company, right? Because I think the process differs a bit.
Okay, we could do internal, right? Yeah, just a little.
Internal, I guess like the most important part is to talk to the key like stakeholders, or AKA like the engineering teams that like or system admins, right? That's helped like spun up the infrastructure. I'd say that's number one. That way you can start, if there isn't already like a diagram out there, right, for you to kind of observe like how does the endpoint reach back out to the internet, right? Does it go through a proxy like Zscaler? Does it go through firewalls, right? How does that traffic look? Because that's really important to know. That way you can actually accurately look at like the log sources that you have. That's number one. Number two, if you have a SIM, definitely just getting in there and reviewing all the different like indexes that you have within there, right? And just like looking at like even like you're an employee at this company, so you should know essentially the big like applications that people use, right? Like you should know what your IDP is. You should know what tooling you guys have available. And yeah, just really looking at the logs as well as like chatting with like system admins really does help kind of understand the environment, because they actually have like a lot of like information about like maybe what kind of controls are even on these devices to begin with, if you're just being dropped in. Because knowing like if you have an EDR on this set of machines, right, what do you have installed on these end user boxes to really like be able to pull like data from is really important, because you might also just be missing a log source, right? You never know where that's pretty common as well.
What's a good question to get sysadmins talking about what they work on and teaching you the infrastructure?
It's a good question for them. Let's see.
Like, how do you like hit up a cloud engineer and be like, teach me what you know or what's relevant to me as a detection engineer or a threat hunter?
More so like all right. So we have this cloud environment. Like, I think it's just like, okay, we're using, let's say, AWS, right? What even goes in AWS is like my first question, right, for them. Like, are we deploying web apps in AWS? Are they only internal applications, right? Do we have like any sort of policy around that? Believe it or not, like policy is actually something, obviously, not policy is only as good as like the people that follow it, right? But believe it or not, I feel like that's also a good point of like data to reference, to kind of know if anything like deviates away from that policy, then that could either be something, it doesn't have to be like malicious per se, right? It could just be like a misconfiguration that you kind of help find as well. Cool. So definitely just get to understand like what certain things are used for, right? Like your example with the cloud environment, what do we use the cloud environment for? Like, do regular users like log into this? Like what users are supposed to have access to it, right? Where is it located geographically? Things of that nature definitely would help.
Cool. Okay. So we've gone over who to talk to, how you got started. Now we're in incident response and we want to get started.
Okay.
What is some advice, tips, tricks that you would tell someone in a SOC or an incident response that'll help them pivot to threat hunting?
Yeah, I'd say number one, know your environment, right? Number two, know the types of threat actors targeting that sector, if it's like general enough, right? And then number three, kind of get a bit more familiar with I guess like statistics. That will definitely help, right? Because when it comes to kind of like finding out and extracting data from your SIM, you're definitely going to have to use some sort of statistical analysis at some point to perform threat hunting. That is something where it's like, machine learning is definitely popular these days, and a foundational layer that's just statistics. So that's something I definitely like recommend as kind of a skill to learn, right? Like the other stuff that I recommended is kind of stuff that you might already know, right? Like obviously, it's important to figure out what APTs are targeting the organization I work at, and obviously it's important to know how to conduct like a baseline of the environment. But yeah, I think like statistics is like a raw thing, right? That you can like familiarize yourself with essentially.
Can you be more specific? I'm not familiar with statistics. Are you talking about Splunk? Or are you talking about like just information transformed? I'm really curious.
Yeah. Like do you know what like standard deviation is, for example, right? Like terms like that, standard deviation, mean, mode. Like these are all things that actually correlate to logs and like the volume of logs, right? And kind of allow you to map out behavior within the environment, essentially.
That's like because we just learned that part of a threat hunter's job is to detect anomalies, and you consume a lot of data, transform it, perform analysis on it, and from that you can spot out anomalies, which statistics would help with. Okay.
Yeah, like standard deviation. You have like the bell curve, right? You ever seen like the meme where it's like the dude that's like a wizard on the right hand side, right? Versus the other dude that's on the left hand side, right? Like that's a part of like threat hunting as well, right? Where you can like see like login patterns, right? Like you can just see like on the bell curve, right? Like do most people log in between 9 to 5, right? Et cetera. Like that's just like a very basic example, but like getting yourself more familiar with statistics could definitely help because that's kind of I guess like a form of threat hunting, right? Just using like math, right, to do it. And would I say it's like a really effective form? I'd say so. I mean, is it going to solve everything? No, that's why like humans are involved. Because if it was truly just like math based with like the rise of AI is really good at math. So I'd assume that would make like threat hunting obsolete. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's just like another way to go about it.
All right. So let's say like there's a hypothesis that's formed. What's like your first step during a threat hunt?
I think you said it, forming your hypothesis, right? Like, what do you want to like catch, right? Like, okay, let's just go with something like simple, right? For the sake of this example, like let's say RMM tools, right? What's the first thing I'll do? Okay, I want to see if like there's any like RMM tools like being dropped onto these hosts that we might miss, right? Because RMM tools are technically legitimate software, right? So EDR might not catch it. So the first thing I'd do if I had access to like our kind of like rules, right? Or detection rules, I'd see if we have any rules related to RMMs, right? If we do, right, that's great because then I can like know what to filter out almost, or not really to focus on. Or if I do see it during my threat hunt, I would know that, oh, okay, like this is an alert that maybe has triggered in the past, right? And then from there, it's really, just baselining the environment, right? Like trying to see, well, we would have to get like a list of all the tools, which luckily is available through like open source repositories, like LORMM, for example, right? I go there, I gather all the tools, which is just like the processes, maybe the process names, the domains, right? Yeah. And then I would search for that in the environment. And then I'd probably see like a bunch of tools come up, right? Or a few tools come up, right? Then I would consult like documentation, the internal documentation to see like which of these tools are kind of expected in the environment, filter those out, right? See how many like unique tools exist across what workstations, right? And then kind of continue from there. I might have to reach out to the system admin or someone that actually uses these tools to see if like, okay, like is TeamViewer a tool that we would expect to use? Like, probably not, but like, you would have to like confirm like, oh yeah, maybe it was like a one-off thing when they were trying to renew a contract, right? Yeah. And then if you see an RMM tool deployed on one host, you would obviously drill into that host for that day, see when it was installed, who was installed by, where the file come from, and yeah, that's kind of like a quick rundown, I'd say at least.
Okay, so how did you even get to wanting to like find out RMM tools? Like, where does the idea or ask come from?
Yeah, that was just an example, but that would legitimately come from something like threat intelligence, right? Threat intelligence does fuel threat hunting, right? That's like one of the main ways I'd say threat hunters come up with their hypothesis, like just based on like what's hot in the news, right? Like RMM's a good example, just because it was hot in the last year or so.
How do they communicate?
A lot of threat actors using them. I mean, if you have a threat intel team, yeah, they can communicate to you. If you don't, right, you kind of have to like just do your own research. I'm sure you guys are on Twitter, and you'll see like what's the organization called, like Unit42 or like Mandiant, like tweet out like, oh yeah, we saw like this, or even Hunters, right? Hunters puts out like blog posts all the time about like what they're seeing, because like usually what these companies are seeing is kind of like what people have been using pretty regularly, right? Because like a company like Mandiant, Unit42, Hunters, right? They're MSP, right? In a sense, they have a lot of clients, so they have a lot more data to work with. So yeah.
So speaking of recent events, we had the Notepad++. Yeah. That's detected as compromised.
Yeah, it's a Chinese APT.
So how does threat hunting play into that? Like that is CTI, right? We have threat intel that it is.
Yeah, I mean.
So what would you have done with that once you heard it?
I would have. I didn't really do anything for this personally. But if that did come across like my desk, right, and I noticed like it was compromised, the first thing, right, the very first thing that I would have done is checked for the installation of Notepad++ across the enterprise, right? Goes without saying, you never know. Just because it's not like an enterprise software, right? You never know if someone had the perms to just install it for personal use. So that's the very first thing I would have done, right? The second thing I would have done is read through like all the articles, tweets, etc. related to it, and see and kind of like extract like what are like the IOCs, right, related to them, and then from there go back into the SIEM and kind of look for those IOCs and see if I find anything. That's a great example though. But yeah, I mean at a high level, yeah, just see if it's installed in the first place. If it is, look for those IOCs across like a maybe 30, 60-day time frame. Mm-hmm. That'd be a good place to start.
Okay. So let's say you did your threat hunts, you got the IOCs, and you did find something. Like how far does a threat hunter's job go?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty interesting, right? Because like when you think about it, a threat hunter does have like all, or not all, but a majority of the skill sets as someone that's in incident response, at least in my opinion. Because they're usually coming from that background to begin with, right? And I think it just depends on the kind of, I guess, SOPs or just like operating procedure, where if you're threat hunting, right, and you found something, you definitely want to like communicate that to like your incident response team if you have one, right? If you're an organization that's more lean, where you're a threat hunter and incident responder, right, then depending on the organization's like structure, maybe just communicate that to my lead or something along the lines of that. But Yeah, I mean, I've seen scenarios where threat hunters have taken the their findings and actually like started a quote unquote incident, like internal incident, and seen it through like from start to finish. Other times, sometimes it's just like handed off to the incident response team. Like, hey guys, we see that Notepad++ is installed on here. Can you work with the user to get it removed, get their credentials reset, and then if needed, perform like forensics on the box or help like see if any data was exfiltrated off or anything along the lines of that. It really depends though.
Okay. So with this being said, I kind of want to run it back to something interesting you said earlier about AI, right? Everyone wants to be about AI and how it disrupts the industry. We see Charlotte, right, being integrated into CrowdStrike. What is your opinion on AI's usage and threat hunting within these, EDR SIM platforms?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think AI is going to play a really big role once the whole context window problem is solved. Even right now, it's still pretty good, right? Because what you could do, you just have to like go about like truncating the logs that you're giving it to perform analysis. But like like I said earlier, right, when it comes to like math and statistics, right, AI is like pretty good at that, right? Because it's all numbers. So I do think it will like aid in a form of like automated hunting eventually. Even though like I'm sure people are already doing it now, right? Like if you think about it, what is like an automated hunt, right? An automated hunt, you can think of it almost as a query, right? That gets run on a schedule, and then from there, the problem with automated hunting before AI is you would get the results from the hunt, and then you would kind of have to like continue that investigation yourself, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes with AI, you can pass the like the results to the AI. If you give it access to like an MCP, like a Splunk MCP, for example, it could then start querying for more data and try to not finish the hunt, but like try to get you as much context as possible to like what's going on, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely going to play a big part, especially like once like the problem is like the log sources, right? I mean, we've all seen a log, right? It's like a big like blob of JSON essentially, right?
Yeah.
And when, we're dealing with hundreds to thousands of logs, right? So it fills up that context window really fast. That's like the main issue with it at the moment, right? Where we'll forget like if you give it 90 days worth of data, right, and it's like the full logs, good luck. You're not going to get really anything out of it, right?
Yeah.
But if you give it 90 days worth of data and it's just like usernames and like if it's a success or fail for a login, then it might do a bit better because it's just like less data and you probably work with it. But yeah, definitely going to play a huge part in threat hunting and just like security operations as a whole. I think like it will really help speed up investigations. I've seen it myself where I've used a SIEM MCP before and got a lot of value out of it. So I think it's amazing.
Can you tell us about a SIEM MCP, how you're using it, and like how it makes triaging and analysis faster?
I mean, yeah, sure. So I use primarily Claude Code, right? And I will hook it up to a SIEM's MCP, right? For anyone that doesn't know, SIEM MCP is basically access to like the Splunk search API, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be able to hit the Splunk search API, give it a post body that contains the query that we want, and then the Splunk server is going to return the response, which contains like the logs that we see whenever we perform a search, right, or query. So what I could do, right, is come up with a a custom Claude.empty file, give it all the context that I want. Like, okay, I'm dealing with sysmon. Here's the fields that we use because every organization follows their own like particular schema, right? Like some people might use the Splunk schema, some people might use Elastic Common schema, and there are a few others out there, right? And all that means is like, what are we going to name the common fields across our data sets, right? Because having username, right, in all lowercase as a field across all of our data streams is a bit more useful than having user.name in some areas, username in some areas. It's just normalization, right? So I would still give my Claude Code that context about what fields are important and that we are using, as well as what like index or source types, right, that are available. And from there, you can literally ask it like, hey, I have like this particular query, right? Give it to it, and then try to find like the context around it. And what it's really good at, right, is like analyzing command lines, right? Like you might see, I don't know, like curl and like five arguments, right, past that process. You might not know what all of them are because I mean you're not like the curl like man page, right? So it's really good at like telling you, oh yeah, this user like they basically got this file and dropped it to this directory, right? And then you can say, oh, you see the hash of the file, like can you look it up in VirusTotal, right? That's just like a basic example. I think what's really good at is just like giving you the information in a more like human like kind of like translation, right? Because typically speaking, like whenever you're doing threat hunting or looking at logs, there's often times where you have to like open up a new tab and like Google like, oh, okay, so like, what is this command? I haven't seen before myself, right? But AI can really help like fill that gap in, I'd say. And I've used it a lot where it's like I see a user download like a file or maybe a couple arguments, right, in a command that I'm just not familiar with. I know Claude Code's usually good about that and searching that up. Also, just like let's say another good example, right, is coming up with the process like tree. It's actually really good with that because it could just trace the PIDs, right? It's a pretty manual process when you do it yourself, but it's not like something that's like really difficult to do. It's just tedious, right?
Yeah.
And with AI, it's like it's just numbers, right? They're just plugging the process ID into parent process ID and so on and so forth until it figures out the full like process chain. Yeah, had really good luck with that.
Cool. No, yeah, that's interesting insight. I think there's a big mass like hysteria against with regarding AI, and I think
Oh yeah, definitely.
we're all just worrying what is it going to do, what is its relevance, are we extracting enough value from it? So I think it's cool that it's aiding hunters in that space.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Also, I just recently came across the term death detection engineering and threat hunting. I'm sort of curious, like, first of all, do those two roles go together well? And then what other roles does a threat hunter interact with in a team?
Yeah, I mean those two roles go hand in hand. Just because, like, let's say, oftentimes if a threat hunter finds something in the environment, right, they should work with the if there is, right. I always want to preface, if there is like an in-house detection engineering team, they should work with that team to kind of fill in that gap and come up with a detection if it's possible, right, to surface activity to the incident response team. Because when it comes to performing a threat hunt, you're finding something that's already been there, right, and it could have been there for days, weeks, months, right. So it's really important to kind of bridge that gap by working with the detection engineering team and actually creating high fidelity alerts that can detect activity close to real time, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, I mean, I'd say they definitely work hand in hand with threat intelligence, right? Because threat intelligence will fuel a lot of the, or a good amount, right, of the hunts, right? And then they would obviously work with IR because they might hand off the investigation, and especially like the steps to actually remediate a potential incident, right? Where, like, yeah.
Cool.
During your threat hunts, have you found anything that you thought was interesting or funny, or just give us insight into like the fun process of threat hunting?
Let's see. I haven't performed any like recently, so I can't really recall. But I'd say like the process itself, like the last time I did it, it's been like a year and a half, right? Since I've like performed a threat hunt myself. But technically speaking, like I do mainly detection engineering. So the first process, right, when you're trying to detect something is trying to baseline the environment. So I do perform it in some regard. I don't think I've found anything too interesting. I think like someone else actually found something pretty interesting before, and that was like a web shell. That was completely missed because there was like oftentimes some web apps, right? They just don't allow EDR to be installed on that like underlying server. So you would often only get like Nginx or Apache logs, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty interesting find by someone. Like they found literally a web shell, but like the good part was it was just like a dev like server that like had like access to nothing. But nevertheless, it was cool because we got to remote into that server. We got to like look at the web shell. We found that it was just like an open source web shell on what's it called on GitHub, right? You could literally just like we catted out the file. We saw the name of it. We saw an interesting string. Literally just pasted that into GitHub. Found the exact one. From there, it was funny because the web shell actually had like a password, right, to actually like use it. And it's just actually like something within the I think it was a JSP. So if you like catted out the JSP file, you could find a hash in there, and we were easily able to crack it. It was a dumb easy password, and we were able to use the web shell ourselves technically, but like we didn't need it. It was just something fun to do. And then from there, it was pretty impactful because we got like that. The way they got the web shell was just like a standard like RCE, right? It was just like an outdated web app, right? Yeah. And it was pretty well known RCE. You could just literally, it's on like Metasploit. Like it doesn't really take much to go about popping it. And then the cool part was we got to like patch or get like the other servers, right, that run the same software patched in the other environments. So it's pretty impactful in that regard.
Awesome.
But that wasn't something I found. Let me just preface that. It's just something that I kind of helped look at afterwards.
Yeah, all good. Thanks.
But yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, that's all the questions we have for now. So thanks for speaking with us, Harshil. We're gonna
Yeah, no problem.
now.
Thank you for your time.